Hey everyone, I'm Bob French from Retirement Researcher. Today I want to talk about a really interesting type of bond called Treasury STRIPS or zero coupon bonds. We actually got a question about these in a comment, so I want to dive in. Plus, it's a nice companion to our article on whether you should be using bond funds or individual bonds in your investment portfolio, which we have a link to in the description. Now, generally, bonds are a package of a bunch of different cash flows. The smaller coupon payments that you usually get every 6 months or so, basically the interest on the bond, since they're just fancy loans, and then the big payments at the end when the bond matures. But strips take normal treasury bonds and pull, or strip, each of these payments apart. This means that they let you buy the specific cash flow or set of cash flows that you want, while still being invested in treasury bonds. So you don't have much risk of default, and even better, they do this with tips as well. So you can get inflation-adjusted strips. They're also really easy to use, as you can buy them in increments of $100, though you can't buy them directly from the Treasury. You need to buy them from some other financial institution. And there are also a bunch of mutual funds and ETFs out there that invest in strips. Aside from being cool from a finance geek perspective, the question really comes down to, well, what can you do with them? They're obviously great for really specific cash flows. If you want a cash flow on a specific date, but don't need or just want the intermediate payments, strips are what you're looking for. And isolating these cash flows can really be useful because you're just getting the money you want, and you don't need to worry about reinvesting all of the coupon payments up to that date that you would receive with a traditional bond. From my perspective, their best use is really as a form of reliable income. At the end of the day, they're still treasury bonds. They've just been rearranged a little. You can use them either to immunize a specific payment at some point in the future, though this means that you'll need to know both the amount and the timing of that future payment, or in a bond ladder, which will provide income over time. Though within a bond ladder, this is a little bit of a pricing question. The coupon payments from a normal treasury bond are just applied to the earlier rungs of the ladder. So strips don't have a huge structural benefit here. It will really just be about pricing out the ladder and figuring out if using strips, either exclusively or mixing and matching, is cheaper. If you're using one of the fund's tracking strips, it's really not doing anything super different than a normal treasury bond fund at that maturity. You've still got income distributions because of that phantom income, just like tips. We'll touch on that in a second. The difference will be the duration of the strip funds will be higher than normal treasury bond fund because of the lack of coupon payments. But if you want a higher duration, you can just get a fund that has a slightly longer maturity. It's not bad or anything, it's just not doing anything particularly special in this context. If you want to go a little bit more in depth on these, I've got 2 articles linked in the description below. One about when you want to hold individual bonds directly and when you should use a bond fund, which I mentioned earlier, and the other explaining what duration is and why it's so cool. But back to strips. I've laid out the big benefit, the specificity of those cash flows, and the main use, reliable income, and getting that specific cash flow. But there are some things to be thinking about if you want to use them. The first issue is actually that single cash flow. If you aren't planning on holding the strip until maturity, you plan on selling it before you get that big check, you're taking on a lot of interest rate risk. The further out a payment is, the more changes in interest rates will impact its value in either direction. You can think of it as the interest rate basically has more time to work on the payment. So since there are no coupon payments coming in the interim, and all of the money will be paid out in maturity, any changes in interest rate will have an outsized effect. If you're holding until maturity, this doesn't matter. You locked in the payment and you don't really care about what the price does. But if you're looking to sell prior to maturity, then you really do care about what happens to the price. This sort of term risk is one of the systematic risk factors that we get paid for holding, though we get paid more for holding risk on the stock side than on the bond side. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is a thing. And just like adding any additional risk into your portfolio, it should be an intentional decision, not just something that sort of happens. The other big issue that I want to mention is actually the phantom income issue that I called out earlier. Basically, just like tips, strips have something called phantom income. You've got to pay taxes on the interest that you earned from the strip, even though you haven't received any of those payments. This really only matters if you're holding it in your taxable account, though. Most of the time, since these are still bonds, you're probably going to be looking to hold them in your tax-deferred accounts, like your traditional IRA or 401k. So, still got to ask, should you be using them? Well, that really depends. If you have a specific cash flow happening at a specific time, they're awesome tools. If they make your bond ladder cheaper because of their relative prices compared to normally treasury bonds, sure. If you're looking at them as part of your true investment portfolio and not reliable income, not as enthusiastic, but there's nothing particularly wrong with them. If you want to use the funds tracking strips, that's fine. But there's nothing particularly special about them. It just adds a little bit of complexity and friction to the process. On the other hand, if you're looking to hold individual strips as part of your investment portfolio and not to meet specific cash flow needs, this is where I would really start to push back. Though I'd also push back on holding any individual bonds for trading purposes. Again, the article's in the description. Just like always, it comes down to what you're looking to do and how it fits with your broader retirement plan. And the best way to figure out whether you might want to look into building that bond ladder is to take the RISA. The RISA will help you understand your personal retirement income style and what that means for not only how you structure your investment portfolio, but the whole of your retirement income plan. And even better, you can take the RISA for free with Retirement Researcher. Just go to retirementresearcher.com/free RISA, all one word, and sign up to take it. The test only takes 15 to 20 minutes to complete and will give you the information that you need to really customize your retirement plan to you. If this was helpful, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you can see what we're up to. If you have any questions on this or any other questions that you'd like me to address, just drop them in the comments below. You can also check us out on the web at retirementresearcher.com and make sure to sign up for our weekly newsletter to keep up to date with everything that we're doing.